What? I've got a problem with seeing things again. I was okay earlier, but now everything's all fuzzy again. Anyway, we left off with verse 37 last week. My translation was, and see, I forgot the word we were using instead of mark. See the, I don't want to say disease. What? Do you remember what word we were using, Donna? The fungus. See the fungus, and behold, the fungus in the wall of the house are sunken, very green or very red, and they appear recessed or deep in the wall. And then we looked at the two words that were used here, shika'aru rot and shafal. And I pointed out that these are not two different ideas. These are not two different bullet points. These don't mean two different things. It's two ways of saying the exact same thing. So we're talking about this lets us know that whatever this is, if it appears deep in the wall, if it appears to have caused some kind of a crevice, if you will, and they use the two different words, perhaps because of monotony. That's one of the things that they do in Hebrew, or maybe because of the more often way of using two words that mean the same thing is to add emphasis. Donna, you're going to have to hand me another pair of glasses. I can't see through these things any better than I can the other ones. I don't know what there's a silvery pair over there instead of the black pair. I can't read almost at all now. You see the silvery pair? As far as I can tell, they look right.
There's a black rim and the...
No, I don't want the black ones. They're the same as those, I think.
Well, these are brown or silver. I'll see the other one.
Okay, that helps. All right, so verse 38 says, V'yatza hakohen min habayit el petach habayit vehisegir et habayit shivat yamim. So we're starting off with V'yatza, which literally is, in English, if we just go very literally, it'd be, and he go out. To go out, to go forth. It's used of the germination of, seeds. You plant them in the ground and they go forth. They break forth out of the ground, that kind of a thing. But it's if someone leaving someplace, he's going forth, he's leaving, say, the temple and headed to someone's house, or maybe he's leaving his house and headed to the temple. He's going forth. And who's going forth? HaKohen. So remember, in this language, you say what they're going to do, and then you say who did it, right? Because in biblical Hebrew in particular, we are not the most important thing. The what is more important than the who, right? Where in English, we are always the beginning, the center, and the end of everything. Anyway, so let's see, min habayit. So he's going forth from the house, min being from the house. El petach, to the entrance. Petach, that's an entrance. An opening, it's used of a gate, it's used of a door, because it's the idea of the entrance, of going in, or maybe the exit, going out. It depends on which direction you're headed in. Of course, he's headed in that direction. So he's going to the entrance of what? Habayit, the house. Now, wait a minute, it's going forth. Let me look at that. And he goes out the Kohen from the house to the entrance of the house. And then vehisegir, and he makes it shut. He closes the door. Et habayit, the door of the house. Shivat is 7 days. So he closes the door of the house 7 days. Does that sound a little idiomatic to you? It should. Because it doesn't mean that once he closes that door, it's not going to be reopened. We already had that last week where if you don't have somewhere to go once your house has been quarantined, then you have to wash your clothing and all that, and you're unclean until evening for each day that you do that, not just for the whole week, but for each day that you do that, right? That came from last week. So he's going to go out, he's going to close the door. Well, that doesn't mean that the person's not going to go in and go out throughout the day to gather food or whatever, right? Hopefully you know that I'm right. So anyway, to shut it up for 7 days, means that it's quarantine. So literally, nobody should be going in or going out, but God's already made the exception. Now, how often does God make exceptions to a rule? Almost never. But people in the West, especially of the non-Jewish variety, they like to marginalize God. I mean, it's a constant marginalization of God. Well, my bills are $600 and I only made $700, and I'm going to need that money to eat food. So God will understand me not paying my tithe. Well, guess what? No, God won't. God didn't make an exception. None whatsoever. So when we do that, it sounds very practical. Well, you're saving it so you can eat. Maybe you don't need to eat so much. I'm just saying. I wouldn't do it. I'd pay my tithe, because the paying of the tithe is so far beyond important that it cannot even be stressed enough. Giving me your money so that you can become rich is dumb. The only one that's going to get rich is me. At least that's my theory. I'm willing to try it out. If you guys want to send me your money and find out if you get rich, I'm willing to try it. I'm just saying. Anyway, paying your tithe. There's nothing more important than paying your tithe and making the offerings that you're commanded to give by God's law. That's the most important. Anyway, so let's stay off that rabbit trail for now. She's going to close it up 7 days. So here's my translation. And the Cohen will go outside the house to the entrance of the gate of the house and quarantine the house for 7 days. So he's either closing the door of the house or he's closing the gate. The word is entrance. It's not really gate, but it's used for gate. It's used for door. So the truth is, it could be either one. Is it the gate? I don't know. Does every house you've ever been to have a gate? Our house has a gate, but does your house have a gate? I'm just saying. I'm not so sure I buy that. I'm okay with it. If you say it's gate, okay, fine. But it's the entrance. And the entrance is either the door or it's the gate. Well, what's being quarantined? Your yard or your house? Just throwing that out there. So either way is perfectly fine. If you say that you went out of the house to the entrance of the gate, well, now you're adding a word. So you probably should leave entrance or gate, one of the two, out. Just saying. But if you leave the word gate out and use entrance, doesn't it sound like the door? Just saying. Anyway, the house is what's being quarantined. So let's move on to the next verse, because nobody had anything fancy to say about that among the sages, or at least none that I found. It says, 39 says, Vishav HaKohen Bayom HaShevi'i Ve'ra'a Vehine Pasah HaNegah Be'kirot HaBayit. All right, so what do we have? Vishav, we haven't had this in a while. To return, to turn around, to turn back. Followed by another verb, to return and do, or to return to do anything, something, is the same as to do it again, to repeat it. So it's used in, and all that kind of stuff. So he's just returning HaKohen. The Kohen's going to return Bayom, in the day HaShevi'i. He's going to return on the seventh day. That's all it's saying. He's going to shut it up for 7 days. He's going to go on back and do his stuff, his Kohen stuff. And then 7 days later, he's going to return, it says. Ve'ra'ah This is the word for to see. To see with your eyeballs, right? The Hebrews use of verbs of seeing, of those things also which are not perceived by the eye. So it's to perceive something, to understand something, whether it's from the touch of something. I perceive that this is a very rough surface, right? I perceive that it's cold because I can feel the chill. I perceive that it stinks in here, or smells good in here because I can smell it with my nose. I perceive that you're angry because you're yelling at me, right? And your face is all distorted, right? So all of this falls under this same word, but fundamentally, it's about what you see. And well, 50% is fundamentally what you see, and 50% is fundamentally what you perceive. Anyway, vehine, and behold, pasa. Oh, that's the word for spread. That means something is propagating, something is moving outward. Hanaga. Oh, dang. This is the fungus that is apparently among us. Dad joke, what can I say? The lesion, the mark, of course that's what it'd be on a person, but this is on a wall. So you could say it's a mark. That's why we're using the same word. You can say it's a lesion. Why? Because it's digging into the wall. Remember, there's a crevice forming here, or it's in a crevice that was already there, but it appears deep in the wall. So it's inset is the idea that we should get from all that. But it's spreading. This fungus is spreading. Then it says bekirot. It's spreading in the wall. Habayit, of the house. So the translation, I'm starting to think that I may have the wrong wacky do open here. Let me go ahead here and see if I've got the wrong one open. Okay, maybe not. That's weird that I'd have this many of them with no commentary by. Which verse was I on? Okay, 39. Thanks for all your help. And the Cohen will return on the seventh day and look. And behold, I've added if so that we'll understand it in English. It's in those little squiggly bracket things with squiggly letters so that you know that word was not there. But it's there because it doesn't make sense in English if we don't put it there. And we want to understand in English what it's saying in Hebrew. That's why we do that and make it so that you can see that we've done that. No, nothing weird is going on. And so on the seventh day, he's going to take a look. And behold, if the mark in the walls of the house has spread. Here we go again. They broke it up right in the middle of a sentence and made two separate sentences, right? Out of at least two, maybe more. But they've broken up a single sentence, which something that would have been a single sentence in Hebrew, and turned it into a sentence that ends with a comma, if you know what I mean. We haven't finished the sentence. Anyway, so I'm going to read it one more time. And if the Cohen, and the Cohen will return on the seventh day and look, and behold, if the mark in the walls of the house has spread, comma, let's move on to the next part of that same verse. In verse 40, it says, Ve'ziva haKohen bechilzu et ha'ovanim asher bahen hanaga vehi shilichu et hen el michutz la'ir el makom tomei. Not tomei, tamei. Sounded like I said tomei to me, but I didn't mean to. All right. So we have Ziva and command. So remember, this is a continuation. So he's looking at the wall. He's seeing that it has spread. And so now he's going to make a command. In other words, this is not a suggestion. If he says you're going to do this, you must obey it. If you do not obey it, you are not obeying God. It's not about obeying this man. So don't get hung up on I don't want anyone to tell me what to do, because you better be okay with God telling you what to do, right? So this is the idea here, is that God's the one telling you what to do. So anyway, the Cohen is going to give this command. Why? Because God's telling him right here, telling us all that this is his job to give this command. Ha-Cohen, it says, the Cohen is going to give the command. Bechiltzu. This is to remove, to draw out, hence to draw off, like to take a shoe off your foot, to withdraw yourself, to depart. Et ha'ovanim, the stones. He's going to make a command that you're going to pull out the stones in this area, of course, that where it has spread. Bahen, asher bahen hanaga, that the stones in the place where the fungus, the naga, the fungus is. In other words, you're not going to tear out all the stones in your house. You're only going to pull out the stones where this thing has appeared in the wall. Vehi shelichu, and you're going to cast those stones el michutz, which is literally from outside, la ir, outside the city. El makom, makom is place, right here, to this place or that place, to the place tameh, of uncleanness, the unclean place. See, in setting up the city where the Jews live, we're supposed to have an unclean place where unclean things are to be taken. And so that's what's being said here. You're going to take these stones to the unclean place. That's going to help people not to go and get those stones and use them in their homes. That's why it goes to that very specific place, so that the Jews will leave everything in that place alone. Because what's going to happen if you take stones that are covered in this stuff and put them in your house? All right, so the translation of 40 is, and the Cohen will command, will make the command, I maybe should have said, remove them, the stones, of course, that have the mark in them or the fungus in them, and cast them, the diseased stones, outside the city in an unclean place, or in the unclean place, because we're assuming, we're talking Bible here, that would have been a place within Israel or just outside of it anyway. Of the word them, Haskuni and Sithra both state that since Vechiltzu, here in verse 40, and Veshachhu in verse 41, since they are plural, a neighbor must help remove the stones. Well, why not the family? Well, because, some people don't have a family, right? Remember, we kind of got into that last week. It's completely ridiculous. There's a reason why it's in plural. Why? Because it's eternal. As long as people live in Yisrael, when they find a fungus like that, and the Cohen gives the command to get rid of those stones and put them in the dark place, or in the unclean place, this command goes on forever. Now, if the fungus goes away and we don't ever see it again, well, there's not going to be a Cohen telling you what to do, is there, right? But it's not a command. The reason why it's in plural is for that very reason. You would have to assume that if this fungus is in the rock, it's probably in more than rock. I don't know if you've ever seen archaeological digs where they have what's left of these homes and stuff like that. These are small rocks. You got big rocks packed all in with tiny pebbles. I mean, it's all in there. So the plurality could be of the rocks, but that's not really why they use plural in Hebrew. Yeah, they do from time to time, but for the most part, especially in the law of all places, if it is in plural, we are talking about this goes on and on and on. It doesn't mean that more than one house is going to get it, although obviously it would, or God wouldn't have given this rule. And it doesn't mean that it's always going to be lots of rocks, because what do you do if it's only showing up in a single rock? You take a bunch out because it's plural? No. Anyway, I'm going to have to move on. This kind of stuff makes me crazy. All right, so verse 41, I just now thought to look at the time. I get going, and sometimes it's like, wow, I'm already out of time. And other times I think, wow, I've been going for hours. And I look down and I've been talking 2 minutes. Oh, anyway. Verse 41, Ve'et habayit haket zia mibayit saviv ve'shachu et ha'et. Trying to say this wrong, sorry. Et he'afar asher hi ketzu el michutz la'ir el makom tameh. So the et and habayit and the house yaketzia. He's got to scrape a whole house because that one, no. He's not going to be the whole house. So this is to scrape. He's going to literally have to scrape. Why? Well, you've taken rocks out. You've busted up if you recall, there was plaster on the walls over that rock. So that you're going to be scraping and cleaning, basically, is the whole point. Mi bayit, you're going to clean, it says from the house, right? So you're not cleaning the whole house, you're cleaning that part that was taken from the whole. Mi, that's why the word is there. Saviv, round about, veshahu. You're going to scrape it out and clean it out and all that kind of stuff. And this is, it's the word for pouring out. Et he'afar, the dust. You're cleaning it's not so much that it's the dirt, it's you got to clean it all up, and there's going to be dust, right? There's going to be dust from the mold or fungus or whatever this is. I guess it's not mold, but it could be. And you're going to be scraping around that area, and all this dust is going to come out, and you're basically, you got to clean up the rubble. Can I put it that way? Because the word can be used for rubble. That's what the dust is. Asher hi ketzu. So that they scraped. Right? You get it? You're going to scoop up or scrape up the rubble that they scraped. So they scraped it. It's down here. You're going to scoop it up. Right? Hopefully I'm making some sense. Mechutz. You're going to scrape it up. And this is from the outside, la'ir, that's the city. El makom, that's to the place. Tameh, to the unclean place, right? So, and he, the homeowner, will scrape the house around the parts that have been removed and pour the dust that he has scraped outside the city in the unclean place. Can we switch to the computer view, please?
This is the original OSHA law. We have something like that nowadays called silica dust. Original OSHA law.
Donna's saying that OSHA has a law just like this. All right, I want to show you here that in these brackets, and I've underlined the word he. It's actually lower than the line. It looks weird. The homeowner. So I'm putting the homeowner to illuminate who the he is. He is the homeowner. We'll scrape the house around. So what I'm putting here is not in the text, but it illuminates around. Because it causes questions. Around what? Well, what do you think you're working with here? The subject hasn't changed, right? So I put this in there to help understand what is meant by that. Back to camera one. I guess she didn't hear me. We go back to camera 1, please. I don't have a lot of air. I hope you guys can hear me because Donna can't even hear me in the same room. vaYiqra by Drazina Wagner, one of my favorite sets of books, says Onkelos, Pseudo-Jonathan Sifra, the Samaritan Bible, the Greek Septuagint, and others pluralize scriptures, scraped, the word for scraped in the scriptures, to conform to the plural form in the other two verbs in the passage, and to indicate that both the priest and the homeowner scrape the dwellings. Ay, ay, ay. Well, they all said it. It must be true. Like the internet. If it's on the internet, it must be true. Holy cow. Wow. Does this signify an error in our Torah text, they ask? Certainly not. We have noted frequently that the Bible mixes singular and plural. Thus, this verse is in no way extraordinary. In other words, they can't explain it, but since it happens all the time, well, what kind of answer is that? The family didn't work because there might not be any. You can't say it's plural because of, you got to put the family in. Well, that didn't work because maybe the guy doesn't have a family. The neighbors didn't work for the same reason because maybe the guy doesn't live anywhere near anybody. But now we have it worked out. Let's just make the priest leave his duties to others and let him dig ditches and clean out sewer drains. I mean, scrape the walls and carry away the unclean things, since there is no law against priests purposefully making themselves unclean. Oh, wait, but there are. I don't mind translators matching plural and singular so their listeners and readers will understand in their own, in their foreign language. In other words, understand anything other than Hebrew. I don't mind that because it's not changing. You would think it wouldn't change the text, but somehow it seems to. But this in no way explains why this mixing takes place in the Hebrew Bible. Why the masculine, the singular and the plural, why that mixing in the same sentence, you've got singular then plural then singular, and just back and forth from one verse to the other. Singular and plurality are Western ideas. Do you hear what I said? Singular and plurality are Western ideas. They did not exist in the biblical text at all. Thus, that which we call singular or plural is actually something else. In biblical Hebrew, the most common word used to describe God is Elohim. This word is in plural. Even the word echad, which means one, is derived from a plurality, not a trinity, a plurality. Thus, we could translate the words echad, Elohim, as one's gods. Christianity has used this plurality to bolster the idea of a trinity. But this is very wrong. And if you're calling yourself a Messianic Jew and you're still talking Trinity, you are in darkness. This is not how it works. In biblical Hebrew, God is described in plural because he is alive, but more so because he is more than just one, and mainly because he is eternal. For example, an idol carved with a smiley face has but one attribute. If we turn the idol upside down, it is still a smiley face God. It is just upside down. To the contrary, a living God has many attributes. He is happy, sad, slow to anger, and sometimes even angry. He is just, pure, righteous, and true. In fact, the living God is so many things that no matter how many we list, there will never be enough words to describe him, nor would there ever be enough paper to write it all down. Further, there will never be enough hard drive space to contain it all. It would take many eternities to even scratch the surface. But don't worry, God is eternal, which is why it's Elohim instead of, in plural instead of singular. Here's how this works. Remove and cast are in plural because there will be many stones. Scraping is used in singular because plaster is a singular material, right? No, it was a trick. It's because God's law is eternal. So things are written in plural to show that this does not end. There are times when things are used as singular. For instance, the mud that goes over the stone. It's used singular because it's monolithic. It all becomes one thing, right? But so maybe that would turn out as singular where stones would be in plural and you could understand it that way, but that's not really the reason. The reason is because the law does not go away. The dust does. Hopefully you follow what I said. I'm going to have to take a second here. Okay. Let's go to 42. Vela kechu avanim acherot vehediu el tachat haovanim ve'afar acher yikach vetach et habayit. Okay, so we start off with the vela kechu and take they avanim. Oh, you can't really hear it in that word, but that's avanim. That's plural of stones, right? So it's from aven or Evan, as in my grandson's name, stone. Aven. Acherot, which is another or after or to repeat. It's all those things. Veheviu, and literally this would be and make come they. Well, because it's in he feel. So how would we say that in English and make that make sense? And bring it. Bring them, in this case, because it's plural, bring them. I didn't mean because the sentence is plural, but because there's more than one stone. There's more than one piece of dirt. There's more than one thing here. Because you've taken stones out, you've taken plaster off, you got lots of dust, you got the disease stuff. What word was I using for that? Fungus. All of that together is a lot more than just one little particle, right? So there's you could say it for that reason, but anyway, bring them, bring it, bring those, however you got to say it to make it make sense to you. El tachat, that's under, ha'avonim, under the stones, the afar, and the dust, acher, which is another or other, the other, yikach, and that's he will take, he will grab it. Betach, what? The plaster. That's the word for plaster. The spread over the plaster. Et habayit, of the house. Okay. So this one's really straightforward. And they will take different stones and bring them to the place, the stones and dust that was taken out, and replaster that portion of the house. So in the previous verse, everything was taken out of the house and cleaned up. Remember the scooping and all that? And that was taken to the unclean place, right? The tameh. But in this verse, we're being told, you don't just leave a big hole in the wall, people. You got to put this, replace the stones and the big stones and the little stones, and pack it with the mud, and then put the plaster back on. That's what you're being told. You're being told they got to fix it. Well, the guy who owns the place or lives in the place, he's got to fix it. So it's pretty straightforward. Right. So we definitely have time. 43. Ve'im yashuv hanega ufarach rach habayit achar hiletz et ha'ovanim ve'achere hi kezot et habayit ve'achere hita'ach to'ach. So Re'im. And if Yashav, that's return. Oh, and if what? The Cohen returns, if his girlfriend returns? No. Hanagah. Oh, man. Now, after they've done all this, they've cleaned it out. They've scraped everything off. They've put all new rocks in the wall, and they've put all new plaster over the wall, and maybe they whitewashed the wall to make it match the rest of the room, or maybe they didn't. I don't know what they did back then, at least not in that area. But after they've done all that, if the fungus returns, oh man, ufarach, and it's breaking forth. You're starting to see it. It's coming back out of the wall again. Babayit, in the wall, or in the house, really. Achar, after he lets, after it's been torn out. Et ha'ovanim, in the stones, v'achare, and after he kezot, and after the scraping, et habayit, of the house, v'ha'chare, again, and after he toach, and after it's been plastered. So again, we're stopping in the middle of a sentence, but here's what it says. If the fungus returns and breaks out in the house after the stones were torn out, and after the scraping, and after the house was replastered, comma. Now we have to go to 44 to finish the sentence, right? Uba hakohen be'ra'a behine pasa hanega babayit zara'at ma me'eret hiv babayit tamehu. Uva, that's from the word bo. It's to come, to go, to leave, to went, to arrive. All of those things, if you recall. HaKohen, the Ra'ah. So if the Kohen has arrived and now he's looking at it, Vehine, and behold, Pasa. Oh no, it's spread. So he's seeing the spread himself. The homeowner saw it. He's let the Kohen know that something's wrong. Kohen comes and he looks. And if he sees that, the next word, Hanagah, he sees that the, why do I keep going blank on that word? Fungus has reappeared. It's spreading again. Babayit, in the house. Zara'at, remember this is the contagion. Then now he knows it's contagious. Before it was quarantined because you didn't know if it was contagious. Now he knows it is something that can be contagious because after all of that effort, it came back. That shows us contagion. Ma me'eret, it's saying that it's a bitter contagion. Babayit, in the house. Tamehu, it is unclean. And So my translation then is, and the Cohen will come and look, and behold, the fungus has spread in the house. It is a bitter contagion. The house is unclean. Before, if you recall, it was just that little area. Now the whole house is declared unclean. Okay, so let's go on to 45 here. Ve'natatz et habayit et avanaiv ve'et zaiv ve'et kol afar habayit ve'hozi el michutz la'ir el makom tameh. So our first word, ve'natatz. Now you got to break it down. This is a kind of a hardcore word. This is to destroy, to break down, to, I mean, it's more about, it's more than just tearing it down. It's destroying it. Et habayit, the house. Et avanaiv, its stones, ve'et, and et zaiv, and its timbers. This is going to be utter destruction of the entire building. Ve'et kol, and all afar, and all the dust, habayit, all the rubble, everything that's there, everything is coming down. Ve'hotzi, and it's all going to be brought. It's all going to be taken. El michutz, from outside to the outside, la'ir, of the city, el makom, to the place, tameh, to the unclean place. So there's not a lot left here to say, but, and the house will be broken down. The house will be destroyed, would probably be an even better way to say it. Its stones and its timber and all the dust of the house will be taken to an unclean place outside the city. The whole thing has to go. Because now we know without any shadow of a doubt that what this is contagious. We may not be able to say exactly what this is, but we do know that it's contagious. Okay. 46. It says, Vehaba el habayit kol yemei hi segir oto yitma ad ha'arev. Vehaba. Literally, it would be and that go. That which is brought out, that which is taken away. El, which is to habayit, to the house. Kol, all. That's the word for all. Yemei, all the days. He segir, it will be quarantined. Oto, with it. Yitma, it is unclean. Ad, which is the word that means until. Ha'arev, the evening. So this is one of those that I've added a word in here to help it make sense in English. The word is anyone. It has those little square brackets and the squiggly letters. And anyone who went to the house during the days it was quarantined is unclean until evening. That's going to be the evening that the house has been completely destroyed and the rubble has been completely taken away. You are going to be unclean up until that point. It makes it sound like it's just one day, but no, the whole time you're unclean because you're here with a contagion. So if you're unclean until evening, what does that tell you that you're supposed to do? You're supposed to wash yourself, you're supposed to wash your clothing, and you're unclean until evening. That's the law that connects to the idea of being unclean until evening. Remember, in biblical Hebrew, those two things are supposed to be connected together. You're supposed to know that those things go together. You can't say, well, it doesn't say it here, so I don't have to take a bath and wash your clothes. Yeah, they do. Okay. Let's go on to 47. Ve'hashochev babayit yechabes et begadav ve'haochel babayit yechabes et begadav. So we begin with the ve'hashochev, and that's to lay down, to lie down. The picture is of someone inclining themselves, laying down on a bed, reclining into a chair, something like that. Should be sufficient. Babai, in the house, yechabes, and wash, et begadav, his garment. Oh, it does say it. Beha ochel, and eat, babayit, in the house, yechabes, and wash, et begadav, his garments. And anyone that slept, anyone that reclined in the house will wash his garments, and that ate in the house will wash his garments. This is what I was saying earlier. Once it has been realized that the place is contagious, anyone that was in there after that initial 7 days, or during that initial 7 days, then during the time that it took to destroy the house. Now, mind you, these houses were what, 5 by 10, 10 by 10? Now, I guess 10 by 10 because you had the curtain they were tiny. No doubt could have been destroyed in a single afternoon and hauled off in a single afternoon if you had some help. Would not have been that hard of a thing to do, I don't think. I mean, you're losing all that timber, you're losing all the stone, all that plaster, everything it took to make that a home. All of that's been torn down, and anyone that's been connected to that, anyone that reclined in that house, that ate in that house, that helped with the tearing down. Of course, they're not saying that directly here. It's tied to the previous part of the verse, in the previous, what we call verse. All of that idea is that you got to wash yourself, you got to wash your clothing, and you're unclean until the morning. So this is the rest of the sentence is what I'm trying to say. Okay. Can we switch back to the other camera? Let's go in. Yeah, we've got time. Let's go on to 48. It says, Ve'im bo yavo hakohen be'ra'a ve'hine lo fasa hanega babayit achare hitoach et habayit ve'tihar hakohen et habayit ki ni repa hanaga. Okay, so ve'im, and if bo yavo. So if he come is literally how you would say that in a translation. Hakohen. Ra'a, and he looks at it, he's seeing it, he's perceiving something. Vehine, and behold, lo fasa, it hasn't spread. We're told what to do if it spreads, but this is if it hasn't spread. Hanega, the fungus, has not spread. Babayi, in the house. Hare, after toach, after it's been plastered. Et habayit, in the house. Now, Vitihar, that's clean. Hakohen, and clean. Hakohen, Keep that in mind. It's a bit idiomatic. Et habayit, the house. Ki ni repa, it's mended. It's to be healed. It's good to go. Ha naga, the fungus is healed. So we have, and if, or but if, maybe would make more sense in English, the Cohen promptly returns. Remember it said, Bo, Yavo, come, he come. That's to add that emphasis. So it makes it more important. It's kind of makes it more exciting. Because first off, they said, well, here's the negative. You got to tear down the whole house. On the other hand, if he returns, he promptly returns and looks, and behold, the fungus has not spread in the house after the house was plastered. Now understand, they had to replace stones and whatever the mud stuff is that kept those stones in place, and then the plaster that went over the top of that. If after all of because they didn't just plaster, they made a big hole in the wall, right? So it just says plaster. But you're supposed to know and understand that the other things that we read earlier connect here. You're supposed to know that. If you spoke Hebrew, you would definitely know that. Well, Bible Hebrew, you would definitely know that. But I'm making sure that you do. After it's plastered, the Cohen will declare it clean. Remember I said, keep in mind there, it's a kind of idiomatic, because the Cohen will clean. Oh, the Cohen comes over and cleans your house. Oh, I kind of like that. No. You're supposed to know, if you speak Hebrew, you're supposed to know that if the Cohen looks and sees all this kind of stuff, instead of giving the command to tear the place down, he's not giving a command here. He's declaring it clean. The house is healed of the fungus. How much time do I have, Donna?
8 minutes. 8.
I'll try to shove one more in here. Verse 49. Velakach lechate et habayit shete ziparim ve'etz erez usheni tolaat ve'ezov. We begin with velakach, and take, lechate. This is the word for sin, as in a sin offering. We say sin. It's the sin offering is because there is the breaking of Torah, and the uncleanness is the breaking of Torah. The person hasn't literally done this; the house has, but there still has to be a purification for the breaking of God's law, because He told us that He was holy and we had to be holy because He was holy in our camp. Anyway, that's what that ties back to. Et habayit, the house. Shite, for the house. Two ziparim, 2 birds. The etz, and a tree. No. Erez, a cedar. Wow, you're taking cedar wood. Ushene, in scarlet. That's the crimson color, I guess. Tolaat, the scarlet worm. Ve'ezov, that's hyssop. You see where we're going with this? You guys should be remembering some of this stuff. So it says, and acquire for the purification of the house 2 birds, cedar timber, cedar kindling, logs, whatever, and a scarlet worm, I should say, and hyssop. comma. And we're going to leave it right in the middle of a sentence here because I am out of time. And we will pick up with the other half of that sentence next week. Shalom and shalom, y'all.
The blessing, vaYiqra. Yavarecha Yahweh v'yish merecha. Ya'er Yahweh panai v'lecha v'hunecha. Yisa Yahweh panai v'lecha v'yasim lecha shalom. And in English, may Yahweh cause you to lie down so that you may rest. May he touch and caress you. May he prepare you for what is ahead. May he watch over you. May he keep you from harm. May he cause goodness to grow in you and take away the bad. May he arrange your life and cause you to flourish. May he cheer you up and gladden your heart. May he cause his light to shine through you. May he show you tenderness, favor, and love in his presence. May he show you kindness and be delicate towards you. May he show you his generosity, mercy, compassion, and desire for you as it comes forth from the depths of his soul. May he lift you out of your pit and deliver you from the things that hold you prisoner. May he draw you to his chest and cast his eyes on yours. May he show you his love and desire for you as he cradles you in his arms. May he bear your punishment and pardon you of your sin. May he take you for his bride. May he establish a foundation in you. May he place his name on your heart and mind and make your body his temple. May you be his treasure. May you always be on his mind. May he draw you near and comfort you when you are afraid. May he assure you there is nothing to fear because he is with you. May you and all that concerns you be at peace because he is your friend. Amen.